Hey there, All Things MSP crew. I am back with another vendor update for the All Things MSP channel. Now, today's update is kind of special for a number of reasons. Number one, this is their very first video update since sponsoring All Things MSP. So thank you very much for that. But also, I've known Brian and Heather for a number of years. They're one of my favorite couples in the channel. If you haven't met them in person, they are just so much fun and kind of what I would consider, and they'll probably challenge me on this, but I think they are kind of the idyllic, couple running a business, not only in this industry, but all over the place, because they just always seem to have smiles on their faces, get a lot of stuff done. And I don't know, they're just knocking it out of the park. So with that kind of introduction, Brian and Heather, how are you doing?
We're doing great. Yeah, with that introduction, how could we not be, right?
little stressed now. A lot to live up to.
Well, I've worked with a lot of couples who run businesses, especially when I was an MSP and I had clients who were small to medium-sized businesses. This is not an uncommon thing for couples to run businesses. And so I thought it was relevant as our first update and as a good introduction to you guys if we kind of touched on that topic. But first, let's introduce Gozynta to the All Things MSP audience. So I don't know which one of you wants to answer this, but what is Gozynta, first of all?
Well, I could take that one. We started out as an MSP long time ago, and there's a little part of that MSP that did software development. Brian and I went on our first date. I was finishing my MBA, and he told me he was the CEO of that MSP. And after we'd been dating for a few months, and I was like, what do I do with my MBA? He said, "Hey, you want to start a business with me?" And then he proposed later, but the business part was first. So, one of the big things that we wanted with Gozynta is whatever we sold and whatever we did was to have empathy at its core. That's who we are as people. We want to have a business to kind of make a difference in small and medium businesses' lives, in the world that we're living in our employees' lives. Those are the things that make us tick. We're not the highest paid employees in our company. That's not as important as doing what makes us happy and what makes us feel good. So that is what Gozynta is in its core. We have several products. We have Gozynta Mobius, Gozynta Tixt, Gozynta Payments, which is a payment integration that's white labeled. And we also have Gozynta Eureka, which is our consulting part of Gozynta, where we can even work closer with small and medium businesses. We also have just launched Gozynta Onboarding, which provides onboarding to SaaS companies in the MSP field. So we have a lot going on, and it's super exciting. And a cute little fact, Gozynta came from a childhood story of Brian's. He used to work in the garage with his grandfather, and his grandfather would say, "Brian, pass the Gozynta." And he'd say, "What's a Gozynta, Pops?" And he'd say, "It's a thing that goes into here." So that's where the name came from, because we get your information to goes into the places it does, and knowledge about the MSP business to goes into your business.
That's like, so I read that on the website the other day. I did not know before you guys started sponsoring that was the definition of it. And so I kind of leveraged that during the live read that I did for you guys. I think it was on Wednesday night, because I just think that's, little things like that are where the magic is created.
Right.
Awesome. So, that kind of, you kind of went into my next question too, is in terms of what inspired you to start it. And so that's great. Let's kind of get into the family part of it now, because you guys really are involved in terms of family and running this business. You talked about you're not the highest paid employees. You do this to get out of it a life rather than trying to grow something that I consider sometimes when they grow, they kind of become a monster in a form, because they're just uncontrollable, and you have to do things that you don't want to do when it gets to that point. You guys are intentional about keeping it small, keeping it family. So how do you think that those ideals and the familyness have really created the kind of culture that you want at Gozynta?
I mean, it's an ever evolving thing, right? And some of those things you talked about, like about intentionally keeping it small, it's an ever evolving thing because part of the reason why we do this is we love doing it. I mean, I love building software. I enjoy making my code better all the time, and that's one of the things that drive me. We both. Um, I mean, Heather talked about we talked business on our first dates because it's what we're interested in. So we both love talking business strategy. We purchased Eureka Process last year, and it was something that we enjoy doing, and in really get into the the process of it. That doesn't sound right, but anyway. And we've gone to startup events and to help other startups with their strategy. We like business strategy, and I like writing code, and so how do we do more of that? Now, as you mentioned, as we grow, it leads to some things that we don't want to do as a result. But mostly we enjoy what we do, so we just want to keep doing it, and then taking good care of our people, because that helps alleviate some of those other issues. And we want our people to work in a place that we would want to work in, and be good to people. That's important.
And hiring for that, we hire for culture. That's one of the top things. And, when we tell our story, when we're talking to a potential candidate, you can see it in their face. We're talking about the job, and then we talk about who we are and what we're doing. Some people don't get it, and they have a kind of like okay, thanks for that. And then there's other people that are like, I love you. I really want this job. I really want this job. And those are the people that were like, yes, this person gets it. This person knows who we are and understands that, and is going to be a great part that moves that forward, makes that clear to our customers, because that's so important. We need to hire people who get it and can deliver.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and something that I want to, say that there's a lot of MSPs who are husband and wife teams, who are family businesses. And how do you really look for, what are some of the maybe 2 or 3 key things that you look for when you're hiring somebody for a culture fit to come into a family business?
I don't think it's any different for a family business or not.
Yeah. For a family business, I mean, if somebody said, wasn't into the family business thing, or thought that was a inhibitor, obviously that wouldn't be something that would work out for us. Culture fit. Actually, we found more with being remote is, being able to feel part of a community, because we are a fully remote company, being able to be part of a community wherever you are. That is, a big part of it. We found that people who like to do water cooler chat and Slack fit in a lot better than those that want to just stay in the grind, and who enjoy telling us what they have going on and sending pictures of what they had at dinner, do a lot better. So yeah, some of those things. As far as a family business, I love it when they come from a family-owned business and they understand the importance of that and the value of that, because I think there's nothing greater than having a company that really cares. Those early days when I used to do sales, support, HR, pretty much anything that wasn't coding, because we were 3 people and the other 2 were coders. I used to be cooking dinner for our 4 kids and answering support tickets on my phone on Freshdesk at the same time. Sometimes I would do calls and they'd be like, what are you cooking? So some of those early MSPs that have been with us from the beginning have known, what I've been cooking for dinner. And you don't get that. You don't get that otherwise, that kind of dedication and support to your customers.
Yeah, and I think it's that just real the reality of being a real person, showing that you are a real person, and you're really doing, you're cooking dinner and helping them at the same time. I mean, it's amazing. But that also brings about a question that I had about roles and responsibilities, because I think it's probably rather important to figure out how to balance roles and responsibilities at work as well as at home, especially when they're the same place. So how does that work? What are some suggestions that you have for people on that?
Well, I think there's a lot of times where one person has more going on than the other. Right now, Brian is doing a release. That means that I'm doing supper. I can barely get him up to eat that supper. So, I'm not asking who's doing supper. I know where our roles is. And there's, Brian is the CEO of the company. So, we both talk about things, but in the end, he does have the final line. Now that's not at home. He's not the CEO at home. But as far as the office, yes, we can battle it out, and we do battle it out. We're not always smiling. We both can. Yeah, we both have opinions. But in the end, there needs to be one that you can't have the argument forever about, what Zoom or whatever else we're going to record on, or WordPress or whatever. We can't have those conversations forever. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah. All of that. But like, relationships are relationships, right? You have business relationships, you have personal relationships. The dynamics are all the same because it's all people. And so you have to, I've seen lots of couples running small businesses. I've been part of small businesses with other couples in leadership positions. More often than not, there's a lot of problems that come with that. You have to have a strong foundation. You have to have the basics. You have to have really good communication. You have to be willing to address hard problems with each other and bring things up before the problem grows. And if you can't do those things, that stuff just gets bigger and bigger anyway. And that's going to be the same with your personal relationships anyway. You bring the business relationship into it as well, and it just magnifies it. So you got to be really solid. And before this relationship, I always said, I don't want to do business with my partner because I've seen all of the additional stress that brings, and it's something you've got to be very careful about. But on the other hand, I wouldn't want to do this now without Heather. She has been instrumental in getting us to where we are at this point, and we're a much stronger company now than we would have been without her.
I mean, those are some excellent points, Brian. I think that, first of all, treating people like people is extremely important. And then being intentional, and you nailed it, because that was my next question. We don't even have to go over it, is communication. Communication is so important, especially when it comes to relationships, because if people aren't honest about how they're feeling and they're holding that in, it can negatively affect a business relationship just as much as a personal relationship.
Yeah, and one of the things that, I'm a computer geek. I'm really good with the computer. I'm really good with code. I have to work a lot harder at the personal relationship stuff. And in my previous business, I didn't put the intention in there. I didn't put the thought in there and the focus into those things. And our culture suffered as a result. Fortunately, Heather's helped a lot with that, and so some of that I can lean on her a little bit. But I've also learned a lot more about it and have gotten better about it myself as well. And it's important. So don't neglect that part.
Yeah. I think another important tip is, when you work somewhere and you have a boss that's frustrating you, you can go home to your partner and you can be like, this was such a frustrating day. And you can stomp around a little bit and, vent. And you can still do that if it's still your partner that's your boss or that you're working with, because there's sometimes that it's like, okay, if you were my boss, I wouldn't be saying this to you, but you're my husband and I need to say how frustrated I am with you did this. So you kind of there's that little different part of walking that line, that there needs to be some kind of give there, that there's going to be times where you just like scream and cry and pull your hair out, because you're showing that vulnerable side that you wouldn't in a professional relationship. You would think about what you were going to say and come at the conversation more calm. But
I would argue that's a good thing, because I would argue that you should be able to have those conversations with your boss. And we can't avoid it. But you should be able to have those conversations, and this just kind of
maybe not with the screaming and crying and the pulling the hair. Yeah,
hopefully not.
Oh, so I knew this would be a fun episode. So I really appreciate you guys doing this. If people want to reach out and find out more about Gozynta, where do they go?
Oh, nobody knows. www.gozynta.com. That gets us to all of the product pages. You can talk to us more. We're always happy to chat, give advice. As I always say, we love to help businesses. So if you are a married couple kind of struggling through it, or at any point, or you're doing it alone and you want to just talk about stuff, we're always here. One of my biggest things is that, we all have to look out for our own mental health, and that you're not in this alone. And that's probably one of our biggest things. So if you're feeling like you're struggling, please, reach out and we can help with that.
Awesome. Yeah, especially with the consulting that you guys do now. And we will be featuring Eureka Process as well as Gozynta with your sponsorship. And I'm very much looking forward to that, and looking forward to your guys' first webinar as well. Can't wait for that one, so that everybody can actually see the value that you guys bring, not only to the community through all the stuff that you guys do, but through your products as well.
Great. We are looking forward to it too, Eric. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely.